Yo, what is going on, everybody? So, obviously, Jake, thank you for taking the time to come on my end for a little bit, or for about an hour or so. But before I want to get started all today, I thought, what a great stream that you had for for the show. When I kind of jumped in a little bit late because I was Dante kind of hit me up a little bit because of you know if I want to try to at least be part of the a part of the team, because that's what he hit me up about. So that's why I kind of filled out the thing on your website, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I like I said, you got a lot of interesting stuff. I hear you're a big time Philadelphia sports fan, and
Definitely.
yeah, absolutely excited to just be a part of this, man. I mean, we've been having a lot of different Philly fans here and there because I've been trying to just basically get my questions answered with as far as this Ben Simmons situation. Are the Phillies really a contender, with as far as the East goes? And how are the Philadelphia Eagles really going to maintain themselves in the NFC East? I mean, seriously.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, regarding to the Ben Simmons thing, man, I've already made 3 videos on him, and it's just like ever since we wanted out of Philly, but that was like the last video I ever made for this whole situation, because if not, I was going to tear with whatever hair I left, or whatever much hair I have left, because at this point, because there was one time on my couple episodes I call him a toxic cancer. He acts like an entitled, spoiled brat, basically, because it's just like he kind of just builds these. He just kind of trolls us on Instagram, and I'm trying to get something with my buddy RB, and I kind of mentioned those 2 guys as well, RB and DJ Eastwood, in that my final video, basically regarding to the Ben Simmons situation.
Yeah. Oh, man. Like I said, I mean, I kind of felt like it. Ben Simmons is the type of guy that what you see is what you're going to get out of him, and he's not going to really change for literally anything. So, it's kind of a tough matter and a tough situation, honestly. But you know what, though? I really had, like I mentioned before in my show, because my interesting, trade proposal was dealing with a 3-team trade between Portland and Indiana, because of the fact of, with Ben Simmons gone, you need to fill 2 voids. You need to have a shooter and you got to have a defender. And I felt like, going and getting CJ McCollum, who fills the void of being the shooter when you need him on the wing, a guy that could really shoot within the perimeter, and then someone like Malcolm Brogdon, who has a really good defensive force and could also give you really good important minutes. But I know how much of a risk that may take, especially when you got young guys like Matisse Thybulle and Tyrese Maxey. So it's, this is kind of an odd situation right now for Daryl Morey to really closely think about this.
Exactly, and I said a lot of good things about Tyrese Maxey too, because at one point I had a hypothetical. I think because throughout the playoffs, I noticed how the offense runs a lot better when Tyrese Maxey's on the floor, because it feels like you have MVP Joel Embiid, and some of these other great shooters like Curry, Green, Tobias Harris. Like, I mean, at this point, I would, if I were Daryl Morey or Doc Rivers, I'd just give Maxey a chance to run the offense. If Simmons is not going to show up to training camp and holds out, at this point, I think it's time for Maxey to shine, because having somebody who comes out of Kentucky, John Calipari, really molding these kind of players into these, just kind of get them ready, basically, which I really find, because when it comes to college basketball, I'm a huge Nova guy. I've always been a huge Nova guy, because and since you have my buddy Mitch on there, we kind of just stayed away from the Mikal Bridges debacle. Let's put it lightly. And that kind of just never set right with us, because it's like, and and I also made a video on Josh Hart too, when he hurt and when he said he wanted to change his scenery, and I got right on that, and just like I was thinking to myself, like, we got to at least get somebody, it's like these Villanova guys, to come home, and because I mean, Hart is a great shooter. Now you're gonna now if you had, I mean, we saw Mikal Bridges, he's another great shooter. You're gonna probably have, like Mitch, and to go on with Mitch said, like we really don't have a bench. Obviously waving George Hill, he went back to the Bucks. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of things we're going to have to retinker at this before the start of the opening day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different adjustments that the Sixers needed to make. And, this is all coming from a time where they just had too many tall guys there in front of them, where they felt really, really powerful when it came to the defensive side of the floor. But you got to have shooters. I mean, that was the whole point of getting guys like Seth Curry in the middle of that mix. That was the point of drafting shooters in the middle of that for the near future, because they needed to get these guys going. But as I've said it, I mean, it's what cost them guys like Drew Holiday, JJ Redick, and of course, Jimmy Butler, because you needed shooters, especially when it came to important minutes and of course, important opportunities when you needed to shoot within the perimeter on the 3 line.
Exactly. And I said this about too, because, having someone, because, even now going throughout the old, like the early, from the starting with the watching the Sixers growing up from the AI era to up to this point. So, I mean, it's a shame to see how these kind of old Sixers like Drew Holiday still find a way to rejuvenate his career. Lou Williams, on the other hand, was one of my favorites, because he, for some odd reason, ever since he, left, he's become like he's going to start becoming like a multi-time All-Star by the time his career is done, which really annoys the crap out of me, because it's like we kind of just set these guys up for failure, and just really, it just never set well with me. Thaddeus Young, on the other hand too, he was pretty well when he did pretty well for himself after he left. It just, for some odd reason, there's something about the Sixers that we just can't get success with some of the players that we get. I'm really, I mean, like I said, Matisse Thybulle, and I said this too, and the fact he's already even outperforming Ben Simmons too. It's just like, yeah, his offense is great. His offensive side is not great, but I mean, he has shown what he can put, what kind of numbers he can put up, coming, especially as a bench guy. I mean, defensive purposes, like he's up there with the best of the best. Tyrese Maxey, like I said before, guy, small guy, but he can still play the old school way of basketball, and can still, and there's threes that may not be his strong suit, but I've been seeing the kind of the work he's been putting into it, and it's just like, if he can really perfect that, there's no telling how dangerous Tyrese Maxey can be from beyond and beyond, basically behind from deep. In other words.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more, because of the fact of, and even putting that, putting the name Jahlil Okafor. I mean, the fact of, all the hype they had at one point, and then just a lot of this mess in Philly. And now all of a sudden he's out of Philly. And then it's like, he just kind of reemerges as this guy that, he can play, but it's like, he just needed to be in a comfortable scenario and situation, I think, in the end of it.
Exactly. And that's just thinking, because it's like, and Jahlil Okafor at one point he was okay, but I kind of felt like, obviously we had like the wrong coaching staff to really sometimes develop these players now. And, at times, I was very critical, and especially, I mean, I've always like, no matter what this, Ben Simmons situation is, I'll still love the Sixers either way, despite the fact, some of the players that have come and gone through this organization has failed. But also done well for themselves. Like you said, Jahlil Okafor, kind of looked like he stepped it up a notch. Jeremy Grant is another one that really stepped it up. When I think it was with the Pistons, if I'm not mistaken, this past season. But I mean, it's just like seeing these old players who come from the Sixers just really reinventing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy. Nate has a question for us. What team? See, that's a tough thing, though, because there's a few teams that I think can come to mind. I feel like Minnesota's one of them, because they're always been persistent to getting him. Because no other, and I guess maybe the Kings, in my honest opinion, or those are my two. I mean, hypothetically, because Golden State is not going to be a perfect fit, because. Because Draymond doesn't really want, because nobody wants Simmons over there in Golden State. The Spurs, maybe. I don't know.
I feel like, honestly, I mean, the only thing with Sacramento though is that you got to ask for De'Aaron Fox, and I don't think they're going to be willing to give up their future for a risky player like Ben Simmons. And if they could pull off a trade where they go and get like Buddy Hield or something like that, or where they get a couple of future first rounders, I'd be in awe. But I feel like that Sacramento, because of the direction that they're going into, I think is too much of a risk for them. So I felt like that might be a little bit over the top from there. As I mentioned before, I feel like a good fit could be Portland. The only reason why of it is because they needed to have more of the defensive presence, and knowing that you have Damian Lillard there, the very least Ben Simmons can really do is just give you important shots within the perimeter. He doesn't have to shoot threes. He doesn't have to do all of this and that, but all he can do is serve as a defensive presence because Yusuf Nurkic gets hurt. There's a couple of other really good defenders that get hurt. So at that point, you kind of think of a toss-up. Well, like I mentioned before, a 3-team trade between Portland and Indiana, getting CJ McCollum out of Portland. You put Ben Simmons up in there and a couple of picks, and then at the same time you go to Indiana and pick up somebody like Malcolm Brogdon, who can give you good defensive awareness, and at the same time give you important points. So I feel like Portland would be a good fit. I know people are skeptical about Golden State, but think about this. If they, I'm not saying that this could happen, but just hypothetically speaking, if you could get yourself somewhere where you can get Andrew Wiggins and of course Draymond Green, because I don't feel like they may have Draymond Green for long. But if they get Ben Simmons at this point, you still have two arguably the best shooters there with Klay Thompson and with Steph Curry. And the only thing that they would need to do is build a bench for themselves, because it kind of felt like they lost that, after Kevin Durant was gone. And then a couple of others had also ended up leaving along the way. So I just kind of hypothetically looking at this as these are, at least the couple of scenarios I would think of for Ben Simmons. But overall, that's tough for what Daryl Morey's going to really put in the cards.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's at this point it's really tough to tell because, like you said, Draymond Green, give all the credit that he has over there in Golden State, and like you said, he's not probably going to be there for long. Golden State kind of changed when KD left, and and it's just, I just don't like you said, I think at this point, just give it to Portland because I've been seeing these cryptic stuff. With Dame Lillard getting tagged in from a lot of people on Twitter saying, I don't know. See, I don't know that what is Portland gonna? See, and not just that, because I thought CJ McCollum's not that bad of a player though. He's an okay player to have, but you're also gonna have. I don't know. It's tough because we don't know how hot. And look, I like Morey, despite, he's trying to really help raise his trade value, but in real reality, it's kind of like maybe probably at the mid level to like the lowest of lows, basically, because I don't know what the return we're going to get. So at this point, only time will tell to what we can really get in return for Ben Simmons.
Yeah. Only time will tell at this point. But like I said, if Daryl Morey can really sweeten something in the cards, I'd be in absolute awe at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And then I got my buddy Coach Dante, who hit me up on Twitter. What's going on, my guy? Yeah, but yeah, and now you mentioned like the Phillies being the contenders at this point. See, that's tough to tell because at one point I was like, yeah, there's no way that this team is really going to really go for a pushing because I've looked at the numbers like between August and September are like their weakest months. We're not very good in the August from the early season on. From between April and July, we actually are like sometimes sometimes there are struggles along the way throughout those months, but in most times not, we're going to have at least some good games too. Don't get me wrong. and I made tons of videos about this too. Two of them were on John Melton because I kind of made the argument to where with most of these struggles that the team is having, I'm putting the most of the blame on him. And not to mention on last night, I actually made the night before, I actually did a rant video, and I have never been so heated as a Philly sports fan in my life. And I feel like I was at this point, let's just like I was kind of breaking down, and with all these fire Girardi slanders, and I kind of went through like the different coaches we had, or technically managers over since our franchise was here since 1883. Most, and I said a lot of them were mediocre seasons, and then we get to 2005. We bring in Charlie Manuel from the Cleveland Indians, and he just kind of turned it, from 05 to 13, probably one of the winningest managers we had. And then, then we move on to Sandberg and then McCannon. That really never worked out with us. And same with Kapler too, was never a big fan of the hiring anyways. But, and I kind of said this, and I made this another argument too. Like, the fact is, like, hypothetically, you do fire him. Who the hell are you going to replace him with? Because, like, and this guy on, he's a follower of me on Instagram. He also made this argument too. It's like, no matter how much of the manager changes, like, this team is not like the bigger picture is, addressing these question marks and all honesty.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I've been so skeptical about Philadelphia because first and foremost is I like the lineup themselves with JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, also with Andrew McCutchen and Gene Segura. I like the fact that this lineup really can work. And eventually, I mean, also too, like even Scott Kingery coming out of the bench at certain times and just utilizing him all over the field. But my biggest concern had always been their starting rotation and their bullpen. For whatever reason, I mean, but Zach Wheeler's having a really good season himself. His strikeout, his K to 9 ratio has been much, much better than what we saw, when he was with the New York Mets. The other portion of it is like when you look at this bullpen, it's kind of sad because there really wasn't any reliable guys that you could bring in, especially in situational positions like the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. That's where I really got serious questions about.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm good looking back at this too, because like from when I remember watching the Phillies, I remember we had some reliable guys like Ryan Manson from that
Brad Lidge.
Exactly. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, we need some like these guys again. And look, I mean, not to mention, like, at one point I was, even though having Hector at one point, really, I was never a big fan of him, but the way that he's kind of turned it around ever since leaving the closer role, I kind of just, no matter what the situation is, I feel like he can really get us out of it because not to mention, earlier today racked up 500 strikeouts and he's getting close to really passing, I can't remember this guy's name because in the Phillies all-time reliever strikeout list. So he's getting up there in strikeouts. Yeah. So, and
not to mention putting in your 2 cents for Jonathan Papelbon,
don't even get me started on that. Because, and that's the thing about Papelbon too. Yes. I mean, I like his competitiveness, but sometimes over time, he is very arrogant. And I can understand, I was one of the people who say, look, he just never worked out in Philly because when I think of Papelbon, I'm thinking of Boston because he always had success in Boston. Right. And that the fact is now not him and Joe West. I thought that was I find that hilarious. And, I'm also being on critical umpires too. I mean, I've been critical on the entire major leagues as a whole, not just the Phillies from a perspective. Like I've been critical of Rob Manfred, some of the rule changes, the umpire in the strike zone, and some of the stuff that's really happening. Yeah. Like, because here from where I'm from, like, since I'm very close, I'm close to Maryland. So we had this independent team, the Sutherland, Maryland Blue Crabs. Mm-hmm. I mean, now from what is now with all this, like the initiatives that the Major League is doing with the independent league, now they actually moved their mound back another feet. And I was like, really? I don't waste. Why? I never really saw the point of, these subtle changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I honestly think that some of these subtle changes was one for safety reasons. But I agree with you too. Why would they even move the mound in the first place? Because it's just like the mound's not the problem. The problem, like, I play baseball and I've watched baseball my entire life. And I've always said this, that pitchers should always know where their location is. Because here's the thing. You throw a low and outside pitch, that ball's coming right back to where it came from. It always does.
Exactly.
And it's not the batter's fault for the fact of it, but the batter's doing the one thing instinctively. You go with where the ball goes. So wherever it lands, that's where the ball is going to go generate right back to where it came from. It happens all the time. I've had so many situations that ended like that. And granted, injuries that have suffered because of that, but I don't think that should even be a reason for it. I still think that what they should do is push for masks for the pitchers. I've been saying this several times about this because pitchers who come into a game and they don't know the scenario, at the very least, if safety, because the NFL's always been king for safety. So if you're talking about safety precautions, that has to be one of them. Aroldis Chapman, Dan Jennings, Chris Bassett, all these guys that I've named up, Brandon McCarthy, all these guys took hits to the head.
And Brian Mitchell, too, when he was with the Yankees back in the...
Yeah, and Brian, yeah. And so all these guys I've mentioned that have taken blows to the head, that's the one thing where I'm like, they need to be in serious consideration into making that happen. Because the last thing I want to see is a guy end his career because of that injury.
Seriously. And you know, since you mentioned that, because I remember this picture from the Mets, Torres. He actually wore this like a specialized cap, like a protective cap of some sorts, where actually because that was like an experimental thing that the MLB was doing, because also, you know, with these line drives to the head, you know, and I still remember Archie Bradley when he got taken, as a starter, you know, hit in the cheek, and like it's just like, you know, at this point, I mean, like you said, I think the MLB should really start looking into like using these face masks, you know, and these protective headwear to where like.
And think about it. If girls softball had been able to get away with that and there have been no problems with it, then why can't baseball at this point?
And like you said, you know, I mean, I've taken a share of line drives back at it myself, but not at the head area. But, you know, I've taken like upper body shots, you know, lower body in the shins. Like, it's not fun, but I've learned how to actually, you know, try to walk it off, you know, even though at the time my adrenaline was running, so I hadn't had a hard time feeling pain. But I kind of think where, like you said, the NFL really knows how to keep this, you know, the safety. But like you said, I mean, if softball has no problems with it, I mean, why not? Because it's baseball. Because, and that's the thing too. I think and I think Tyler Flower when Tyler Flowers, when he started making the innovations to the catcher's mask with these little springs like in the mask to help, you know, kind of, you know, reduce the impact. Even catchers too can also get, you know, with some of these.
Yeah, they can.
Because I remember and I remember some umpires too, like with these old school masks, like when they get flushed to the face, like they just are down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just down, and they're just like, yeah.
and then, you know, he said, "What up to you?"
What's going on, Dante?
But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. It's just like I would rather have seen, you know, these safety initiatives kind of, you know, following the steps of not exactly following the steps, but kind of follow the idea. You know, like, I mean, you know, I know everybody gets injured, but I feel like in baseball, pitchers take it the most. Well, and then also catchers too, because the foul balls to the head or technically straight to the mask, though, it's just like it just kind of shows. I mean, it makes me worried, you know, because like someday it could happen to me, you know.
Right. Oh no, absolutely. I mean, it could happen to anybody, you know, and that's the thing, is because that's why I'm like, when it comes to these safety protocols, it's like they just have to get this thing right. I've put in so much of my 2 cents when it came to Major League Baseball, and it's just ridiculous, you know. And I look at it with how Rob Manfred's really been manning this thing, and it's just like, first of all, okay, foreign substance thing, whatever. And ultimately, when you play baseball, you had to learn the fundamentals of it. That's really all that it was. And I feel like we've taken fundamentals out of the mix for years, ever since everybody's been kind of, juicing up. And then at the same time, the pine tar situation, all this stuff. I mean, that's honestly what has been the normality of the game. But at the same time, I've said it, long story short, what baseball needs to do is, first of all, you need to implement safety precautions for all pitchers. All pitchers need to be required to wearing a mask at the very least, even if it's ones that like softball, like girls softball has. Even if you got something like that, something where they can be able to see their locations of what the catcher's given to them, so that it makes it better that they avoid these types of situations. That's one thing. The other part is, like, the extra run rule, fine, but that should honestly be implemented in season, not in postseason. Postseason it's a pressure type of situation, and we all love stuff like this because you watch it all the time where like players start to hit on the shift, which, by the way, Bryce Harper finally figured out how to bunt on a shift situation, which they need to implement more of that. Where I'm like,
and I'm one of those few because and that's the thing too. I never liked the extra inning rule because, and I said this before with a few buddies of mine. Number one, that's a cheap, easy way to win, no matter if you're the home or the road team. Like the shift, on the other hand, I don't mind it as much, but it just, and it kind of just. At one point, I just I don't mind it, but then again, my brain kind of got me saying, like this, I want like to go back to the old school ways of baseball. Play straight up defense. It's like it is. I mean. Like especially to left-handers, like it's ridiculous because we had like some best left-handed hitters retired because of it, and I just never got the credit. Just really never liked the shit. But the one thing I do want for it to come back is the universal DH, in my honest opinion, because I've liked that because my reason is because I remember when this season started, like when take Jacob deGrom for example, he had like. First time I swayed at bat, he gets landed, started having the shoulder problems. I'm thinking to myself, we need this DH because we can't, and not to mention there's a lot of soft tissue injuries that's been kind of, plaguing Major League Baseball. And it's just like, it's, getting out of hand, having something like the universal DH can really, save, some pitchers from actually, hurting themselves.
Right. And the whole point of it was at the same time, like the whole point of having like that inning stretch with these pitchers was the fact that at least they saved pitchers, within their bullpen, which is what I thought that was the initial thing. But now you watch guys like Dave Roberts of the Dodgers, where he's just always infamous of using so much of his bullpen guys. And it's just like, how much of this are you going to continuously do until you got no arms left? And now you're kind of forced to now having a position pitcher play pitch in the game, and the other thing of it is, especially with the shift, I was watching the Dodgers and Giants game, and 2 outs, a runner at second. They are playing a shift in the middle of that. I'm cringing because I'm just like, if you have a runner in scoring position with 2 outs and you've got that shift happening, and this is the thing, they're shifting all to the left side on a right-hander. And I'm like, dude, all he has to do is just watching the outside pitch going, throw the bat up out there, it's ball game. And then you're all going to end up thinking about what you did wrong. If it were me, I would have just played up because that scenario you cannot afford to have. So it's, it's just like little fundamentals like that.
Exactly. Because for him now, like, I've played in men's league. There was a few times in the season where we had to call the shit because we seen the few teams a handful of times, like we knew what they're really going to be capable of. So there are times we will implement the shift, but 100% of the time we're playing old school straight up defense, with, 2 outs, we're playing straight up, or sometimes if it's 1 out, like a runner on a third, like sometimes there are times we, say, look, let's just get the out and just give up the run, concede the run. So, there are times where I would, that's what, oh, by the way, my buddy Lucas Holman just subbed to you.
Oh, thank you, Lucas. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, we're on the road right now. We got 5 more subscribers until we get to at least 400. And like I
Oh
said,
yeah.
I got this thing right up in front of me by the time we get to lucky 500. So, oh yeah, it's
Oh,
gonna be
that's
on at this point.
oh. But yeah, like it's just like these like you said, no, moving to the end of, and that's the thing too, and this is why I hate sometimes. I had that old school mindset from the baseball from the '90s. Something having I mean, look, I get the scouting reports, I get that, but the fact you're going full blown analytics in the modern day and age of baseball, it really is kind of really hurting it too. Like you said,
Oh God, analytics. Yeah, they have completely changed the whole pace of play with the game. But honestly, look, I could care less about analytics in a season, but when the postseason's on, analytics don't mean a damn thing unless you actually understand the pressure situation and especially, the coaching style when it comes to games where you got to have it. You got to make the right call. You have to make the right call in every single situation.
yeah, I mean, at that, I feel like the postseasons at that time of year, like they're going to have to go full blown old school. Like you have to go with your gut feeling, and honestly, I think Harper, in my honest opinion, the way that he's going right now, I think he's already up in the top 5 in most of the categories he's putting up. Obviously he's probably leading. He's already leading the with the an OPS from last time I checked. But at this
Now, I'm
point,
going
I
to
mean,
tell you right now, it's about damn time. It's about
exactly.
damn time that he has been. Because honestly, listen, I've got a really good friend of mine that I've been elementary school buddies with, and honestly, like his brother-in-law is Bryce Harper, believe it or not.
Oh my
And
god.
I live here in Las Vegas where he went to school at Vegas High and then ended up going to CSN. And the only thing that I could tell you from inside scoop was the one thing that changed was the back. The back injury was what was one of the things I was hoping Bryce was going to get over and be rehabbed from. But now seeing him up onto this tear, it's like his back is good. He's getting to where he was in the 2015 MVP season. So who knows? I mean, I just think it's going to be very interesting to see this happen. But
I mean,
finally, after all this time, like, yeah.
and not to mention also an all-star snub, but he's kind and I said the exact same thing too with Zach Wheeler. Other than that little rough stretch of starts he had, but at this point in the season, I mean, he's already making him case for a Cy Young candidate, for being a Cy Young candidate, and now seeing Harper finally actually get back to where he once, probably being better than his 2015 season, which is really crazy to say. And what's crazy to see is that his power is. Oh, yeah, it's pretty much hit the ball the other way, in my honest opinion.
Everybody's all excited right now that I'm up in an interview with you. I got my everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like seeing what Bryce Harper is doing now, but probably even is doing, putting up way better numbers, and also learn how to hit the ball the other way too, which is like you said, it's like something he hasn't really done in most of his careers, but he's been fact that he's like using the whole field now in the season, or like for his first like 3 seasons of here in Philly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with how Philadelphia really does pan out, and hopefully that they'll be a contender. I mean, the only question is just situationally how they're going to be within that bullpen. That's the only thing. And even with that lineup, how that they're going to manage things in situational baseball. And because we've seen this with Bryce several times, we're in postseason, hasn't really hit a whole lot. And then you look at other guys like Gene Segura, and I mean, Andrew McCutcheon's got some experience on his belt, and JT Realmuto is a guy where if you need a hit and you need a run, he's going to be that guy that's going to generate it for you. And who knows? We're not sure what Joe Girardi really does have in the cards, but hopefully the Phillies can get back into being in the postseason, and we'll see exactly how far that they're their playoff run can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like seeing what I mean. Like you said, the only like the question marks I can see is like the number 5 spot in the rotation, and then obviously we have another Vegas kid coming up very soon, is Bryson Stott, which I'm really hoping to see come up. But and I also made this argument, a video about it too, because this offseason is going to be very shortstop and bullpen heavy.
Yeah.
Like a few names are going to be on the free agent market, especially the shortstop class. It's Corey Seager, Trevor Story, and Carlos Correa, just to name a few. And the only ones that I wanted to, or I keep my eye on for shortstops is Seager and Story, because like say if Stott is not ready, I would just go out and just at least get a shortstop at least for like a year until Stott is ready to come up. And I'm trying to make the same argument, because we really don't have a backup first baseman, because Brad Miller is a liable on defense. I mean, you could put JT right there. I mean, he's not too bad. JT's not that bad at first base, but the one guy who actually follows me on Twitter and both Instagram is Derek Hall, their first base prospect. And from what I've been hearing, he's been kind of tearing it up too. Like the power that the Derek Hall has is unbelievable. Now it's just like, there he goes.
Yeah, there's Key. There's Key, and then there's Darian.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just who with this. I mean, I know this team, with the depleted farm system, but I mean, we can have some potential stars, despite a depleted farm system. Like Andrew Painter and Mick Abel, I have really high hopes on in the near future. And same with Derek Hall and Bryson Stott. So those are my hopefully potential all-stars. Oh.
Yeah, there's Darian.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of what my thoughts on and I think, I mean, if the Phillies can do the way, I mean, they just obliterated the Milwaukee Brewers. So I think if they can do that, put up a ton of runs, I mean, who knows? I mean, I think this team can really take the division. But I think I said like it before, looking at it from the outside in, I think this team is pretty much a wild card team at best. Well,
tough to say, because at the same time, I mean, you've got a Braves infield that all of them have hit 25 plus homers.
Yeah, exactly.
And Austin Riley's been on a tear, and Ozzie Albies at times, he's been a guy that sometimes you can get a really good important stick out of him, and then you already know what you're going to get with Freddie Freeman. So that's going to be tough to do, and especially when they're doing this without Ronald Acuna. So they're trying to make anything work at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, I know that, I mean, I don't see this division it's competitive to some extent because, at one point we were kind of getting compared to how the, speaking of when the Eagles were coming in or started football, like last year, like how bad the NFC East was, it was just so weak, and then all of a sudden, just sometimes it gets turned up is getting red hot in the end, which is ironic to see.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But yeah, speaking and when it comes to the Eagles, I'll try to wrap this up because I know you got to head out for a little bit. But at one point, I mean, I'm really impressed to see what I mean on paper. This team is pretty solid from top to bottom. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be some question marks when Slade's going to be gone. Even when it comes to next year, Slade's going to be gone. Even also Steven Nelson too, who, I mean, at this point, and someone made and I kind of said, look, someone asked me when I did one of my podcast episodes, if Steven Nelson plays, I mean, would you chance to resign him and let's because if you say some of these players play well on their last years, would you have a chance to resign them? Especially next year, we're going to have a lot of money in cap space, or would you go out in free agency to fill the spots that we really need?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of tough. I mean that's kind of a scenario that Philadelphia really has to thoroughly think about, because the fact of you already know the two impactful defensive pieces that makes this team work: Brandon Brooks and Fletcher Cox. And at the same time, you already lost Jalen Mills to free agency with the New England Patriots. Well, by the way, I mean, I had a great conversation with him the last time around, and he was very confident after the second they get Darius Slay and not to mention Cortland Roby Coleman Roby, and and a couple of these guys in that secondary. And so that was all from the time last season with the Eagles, and then obviously with the way things have finished. Yeah, there's a lot of question marks about it because, first of all, Jalen Hurts now being the full-time starter of this team, they go and acquire one of their top-end backups in Gardner Minshew, and it's like basically Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni have to make this thing work. They have to, because the fact of just what a mess that Doug Peterson had, and then Carson Wentz, and then injury after injury from the last couple seasons since 2017, and then Alshon Jeffrey not being happy. And so there was a mess in Philly, and that's where kind of Philly fans, it was driving them up the walls, because the fact of this was a team that they got the job done, which, yes, great. You got New England done. Like you beat them, but jobs are always never done. And then that's where New England got back into the Super Bowl the next year. So that's kind of something, Philadelphia really has to make serious noise in the NFC East, especially when you have Washington that's got a solid defensively and offensive team, but they're only a quarterback away. And you got Dallas with a really good offense, but could be
their defense is questionable.
Yeah, their defense is questionable. And honestly, it's go time for the Giants, but who knows what Daniel Jones is really going to
exactly
look like this next season.
And that's why we exactly too. And this is why I think having someone like Sirianni, who's, a young coach, but he also is a player's coach, which something, we had, I guess you could probably say Andy Reid was at one point here in Philadelphia.
Andy Reid definitely was, for sure. Especially when he brought the best out of Donovan McNabb and Brian Westbrook.
Westbrook. That team would, and not to mention too, now if Jonathan Gannon can really bring out the best in our defense and all that stuff, like, I'm not saying he could be like the next the previous defensive coordinator that we had, not Schwartz, but the can't remember his name though. It's really driving me up a wall. But yeah. So we had during the Andy Reid era,
But you know what though? I'm very optimistic about how Shane Steichen's really going to man this offense, because obviously, for me being a Charger fan, I was hoping Steichen did not leave, because first of all, he made it into the number 8 best offense in the NFL with the Chargers. And the second that he kind of left, I was kind of scared about it. And then we go and get Joe Lombardi, who had the 23rd best offense with New Orleans, which that was kind of scaring me, because the fact of, well, what exactly does he have in the cards when it comes to offense? But if you got full trust in Justin Herbert, and you've got a defensive-minded coach, which finally, since Marty Schottenheimer was like that, hopefully this will build confidence for the Chargers to now win more games and actually make the playoffs this year, because we can't afford to underachieve again.
No, I mean, and I can say this too. I mean, I've noticed it's like even Shane Steichen too. The fact that he was and me and my buddy Brandon Lapp, because he's an Eagles fan out in Arizona. Mm-hmm. We were talking about this too, like who, obviously, we had once after we hired Jonathan Gannon, we didn't know at the time who was going to be our offensive coordinator. One of the names was on that list was Shane Steichen, and there's like 2 others. It's like I'm thinking to myself, I think the one that makes the most sense is Shane Steichen. And then next thing I know, then we hired him under Sirianni. And then again, he's also familiar with Nick Sirianni, so which kind of does make a little bit more sense. And same with Jonathan Gannon. So basically, where Nick Sirianni has just two different coaches from 2 different teams that he's been with. I mean, obviously, Sirianni has a long coaching record, but not like a head coaching record, which I think at this point, I'm very optimistic too, but I know there's going to be some growing pains, for most of these rookies, and you have like Hurst entering his second year. You have Rager entering his second year. You got some of these, outstanding rookies. Devontae Smith. It's, I'm very optimistic, and what Mitch said too.
Finally, after all these years, Howie Roseman finally figured out what he needed to do right.
Exactly, and not to mention too, not to mention, we trolled the living crap out of the Giants fans when we traded up to the 10 spot, and some of the Giants fans will say, "Oh, like you're breaking unwritten rules." Like, I mean, I don't remember that being an unwritten rule. Like if you traded with your traded in the division,
right? Yeah, exactly. I never seen that.
Hey, but look, I mean, thanks. I mean, look, I try my best with my stuff. I'm really, but exactly, yeah, and then. I was like, because I'm seeing like these like players that I had them on my mock draft, which when the Bengals took Chase, that fucked up my entire mock draft. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I was
Because
so
everybody had Penei Sewell up over
exactly.
there,
I
or
had
they had
Penei Sewell.
or Rayshawn Slater. I was really surprised at that.
Yeah, but
I don't understand what's going on
I
with Cincinnati.
I don't understand it either. But I mean I had Surtain and who was the other top corner that was in that draft class?
Oh, J.C. Horn.
JC Horn. I had him flip flop, but
Oh,
the
wow.
actually yeah, because I had Horn going to actually no, wait a minute. I'm wrong. I had Horn going to the Carolina Panthers, and then I had Justin Fields go. I think I had Justin Fields going to the Broncos, and I had I don't know who was the team underneath, but as soon as I seen J.C. Horn got taken, Surtain got taken. I was like, oh, here we go. Next thing, then I see on the bottom of the screen that there was a trade made. It's like, oh, it's like who made this trade? Next thing I know, I see the Eagles at the bottom of the screen. It's like, are you shitting me? Did we just trade for one of the most hated rivals in the NFC East? It's like, I was like,
and then all of a sudden, it really did you guys a favor at the end.
It did. That's like what? Because I was on those
that
streets.
Screwed the Cowboys out of getting one of the top corners, which they needed to help out Trayvon Diggs. But at the same time, it's like then Chicago messes around and goes and gets Justin Fields in the middle of the mix, and finally the Bears actually have hope for once in their quarterback position.
Yo, what is going on? Key in the chat for a little bit.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean to wrap it. But I think to wrap this up, I think overall, I think the Phillies at this point, I think at this point the way that they're playing, I think can keep up this hot streak. I believe they can be contenders, but I think in the all season they need to start reassessing things. I think I'm very optimistic about the Eagles, and I had them going 11-6. I mean, I said because when I made my prediction was at worst case you could probably say 10-7.
Yeah.
So trying to, but then again, it's just like, and then the Sixers, who knows with them, but who knows?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, because I have the Chargers right now, basically going 13-4, if not 12-5, because this is a team that I was very happy with the Rayshawn Slater pick, and at the same time, I was even happier the second that they got away with getting Asante Samuel Jr. that was literally just falling right in front of their plate. And then you go and get a wild card wide receiver in Joshua Palmer, which I was very bummed of the fact they cut Tyron Johnson. I don't understand why that they did that, but at the same time, if Joshua Palmer is what people are saying that he is, then I'll have to say, just prove it to me on the field.
Exactly. It's the same thing. What we're seeing, for the Devontae Smith, with these, I think if he can do what he can do, probably, step it up, he's in technically the big leagues. Who knows? I mean, I kind of said this too, the praise I'm seeing these old, these great wide receivers from the back in the day, like Ocho Cinco. Who else? Someone else. I can't remember. There was another guy that I was like, I've seen the praise. Is like, I mean, I guess that there is something to be said about Devontae Smith and what he can do.
Yeah. But you're hoping that at least this wide receiver core now, it's a young one. There's not really any old guys like Alshon Jeffrey or Deshaun Jackson. You're hoping that Devontae Smith can come in and plug in and be a guy that's impactful in the air. And then not to mention a healthy season out of Jalen Reagor. And who knows now? I mean, you bring back Travis Fulgham, and then there's, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, which is another one that I'm just like, that
still surprised me how the hell he made the roster. I was, I was like a loss for words. Like, how does this guy, number one, have a good touchdown? He guarantees roster spot. And I don't know at this point. I was like, what am I saying?
They do need to come out with an award to give it to the practice whoever it is in the practice squad that's making these guys come up and actually play B-rated players. Somebody needs to give that guy an award there in Philly because he always seems to be coming out with some sort of some sort of magic or some sort of genjutsu up out there that's making this
I
happen.
don't know either because it's like you're having like someone like Greg Ward who despite coming from the practice squad, really actually made his presence felt since getting called up from the practice squad, and and I was really hoping too that we were going to carry 4 running backs, having Sanders, obviously Sanders and Gainwell were locks. I think I was really hoping Jordan Howard would be, well, even though he's on the on the practice squad, I was really hoping to be part of that rotation, as that bruiser back, something, and I said, and someone, and I can't remember who, but somebody said that if he had that shoulder stinger really, I think really screwed him up, and obviously, and that his time in Miami was, he just didn't look like he fit in Miami.
No, and I think that was just unfortunate for Jordan Howard. And, seeing now Myles Gaskin really fit, really fitting well for Miami. I just don't think he was really the guy that could have plugged in and really could do, much for him. But I'm really hoping I see more carries out of Miles Sanders this year because, please, they haven't had a solid, the last 2 solid runners were LaShawn McCoy and Brian Westbrook.
Exactly.
Can we at the very least give Miles Sanders an opportunity to run the football? I mean, good God, you got a guy that's coming out of the same school as Saquon Barkley, and so who knows how Miles Sanders can produce if we don't really give him that many touches and that many opportunities to run the football. I think it could very be productive in that area.
Exactly. Not to mention too, with Sirianni's offense is going to be very unpredictable, whereas, in the Peterson era, it was kind of, you knew what was coming. And
right.
That's just why I think having that unpredictable with Sirianni's coaching staff, I think is really what's going to help him. Now we're going to see what Jordan Mailata is going to make and which at one point I was very skeptical on when we picked him, but the fact that he comes from a rugby background that never really picked up a football and became a quick learner with that, it's like, okay, so the fact he's like 6'8", 350 plus pounds, but is so agile, and it's just like, it's crazy to see guys that size, over 350 plus pounds, being super agile on their feet.
Right.
Because and Brandon Brooks too. I think he's going to I really hope he has a breakout season. Coming back from 2 Achilles injuries at the same time, it's like man, can't catch a break. You get 1 Achilles injury, but but what I do find impressive is how quickly he came back from that in 6 months, which it's just like this. I'm pretty sure Brandon Brooks is a superhuman, because there's no way in hell he should be coming back that quickly from that Achilles. But another breakout I think is really going to happen is Josh Sweat. Having someone like Ryan Kerrigan and Brandon Graham, who's probably going to be retired as an Eagle. I think you can pick. Those are the guys I think you should really pick the brains of being the defensive end. And I said this too. Sweat is being a quick, agile defensive end. He's going to kill that outside part of their offense. It's going to be hard to stop Josh Sweat.
No, it's absolutely true, but we'll see when the time comes. And then of course, as we get down the road, with the season coming up, it's going to be really exciting as it is. So I just can't wait for the season to officially start. And, we'll see. Hopefully that, the Eagles will answer every single one of their questions that everybody just keeps throwing out to them, and hopefully that they do a lot better. So.
Well, yeah, but I think that's all I have for today. But, Jake, thank you for coming on. I hope we could try to at least get something set up on your end with the Spotlight Sports Network. Hopefully try to be, want to give my insight to hopefully be part of the team, because I want to try to at least be part of that, because it's because it's something I wanted to try on this platform, but trying doing it solo. It's tough, but I've worked hard at it, but having seeing what Mitch now being part of the team, kind of wants me to, because he's the one guy that helped me to get started on this platform, and I want to be, help produce for you
Mhm.
guys on the Spotlight Sports Network.
Absolutely, because here up on this network, man, we're a winning team and we love guys with winning mentalities and at the same time that can produce really, really good content that could be bringing in a lot of subscribers and especially too, like we help each other out when it comes
Oh,
to
definitely.
needing the thumbnails and not to mention everything else in between. But we do it all together because of one goal, and that's obviously to be the best network that's producing the best content up out there for our viewers, listeners, and so much more that, because people love this stuff. I mean, it's been a big impact since, the shutdown themselves. And so, yeah, absolutely, man. I loved it. And hopefully we'll definitely set something together up and everything else, and even including my show at the Snake Sports Talk Show. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because seeing I checked out the sport. Having my channel underneath the feature channels on the Spotlight Sports Network, kind of it really makes it, like you said. I want to help. Keep the be part of this group to help win. That's kind of that because even when I started, it says like even though I may not have my editing might be shoddy with some of my videos, but I just kind of feel like I want to try at least show my content out. Hopefully some networks like you guys for example can hopefully notice take notice, because I mean at times if you guys see any like the rant videos that I do, which I very rarely do, I forgot to put a disclaimer in because I have a tendency to swear like a sailor, so I've been trying not to do that as a lot. But when it comes to the Phillies and everything else, that's a whole different ball game. But guys, for those who stuck around on the chat, Key, Coach Dante, Darian, Luke, my buddy Lucas, I mean, my buddy Nate, who I'm trying to get setting something up. He's a Giants New York content creator. Jake, I actually have your channel linked in the description, so they hope people can find you, or you can tell people where to find you.
If you like. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. For those of you guys that love quality content and at the same time, you guys love sports and also love all of the entertainment there with sports, definitely subscribe to the Snake Sports Talk Show. I'm all over the social media platforms. I'm on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and of course I'm on Facebook, and you can tune into the show 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Mondays, I will be live tomorrow because it's that time again where I'm going to be giving out my favorite segment I do every year, and that is the Prime Predictions. I have been hitting a lot of these game scores, and not to mention a lot of these bet lines, and majority of the time they've been hitting. There's rarely been any misses that's been going on. So I love the segment that I do with that. So I'm excited for this new NFL season. So definitely check me out at the Snake Sports Talk Show. We are very close to 400 subscribers as a channel, and hopefully we can get to 500 so that way then we can open up this bad boy and get this thing going.
Well, yeah, man. You guys can also help subscribe to my channel. Also, I actually have my own merch line. I've been heavily promoting my own Teespring, because I have it through Teespring, and I've been I was because the one idea, because my buddy DJ Eastwood brought this up, because I want to try at least feature people on my Instagram as something like an appreciation to people who support my channel through my merch, because I try to work hard with it. But yeah, I mean, guys, if you want to check out my merch, the link to my online store is in the description. But Jake, man, thank you for taking the time to be on here. Hopefully, you can always hit me up when you're available. We can try to get something on your end. Hopefully, obviously, like Dante said, when he hit me up on DMs, to help me get more exposure, because I've been doing a lot of promoting on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, like you name it. I mean, I've been trying. I mean, the most, but yeah, but guys, thank you for those who stuck around. Oh, there's my buddy Joseph Balby, another Giants guy. But yeah, Jay, I can't really thank you enough for coming on. Hopefully like I said, hope we get something on your end, and hopefully try to be part of your show one night.
Absolutely, man. We'll definitely work something out, but I appreciate you bringing me on by. It's been a lot of fun, man, and can't wait to do this again.
Oh, definitely. But I'll see you. I'll see you on the other side.